It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. And this Feedback Friday is a very special Feedback Friday. Shadow of the Earth Tree DLC. Oh my god. I've promised myself I'm going to finish Stellar Blade first before I dive in. I'm surprisingly excited. I went from an Elden Ring meh person to really getting into the lore and the community and the particular tunnel that this particular DLC is about is one of the things I really went down the rabbit hole on. And what is it? What does it mean? How does it work? So I'm stoked, and I don't know what it says about me that I'm into this. Since the what is it? The Lands Between? Is that what they're called? It's a pretty fucked up place, but yeah, it's cool. Speaking of cool, the comments were really, really good this week. I'm very happy with the way the experiment of affirming content on Manly Mondays is going. And the reason I'm excited about it is because, I've watched other types of content for men, and it is either very pandering, which is part of the reason I'm so red flag on the term pander, because I think ultimately it just builds the guys who watch that sort of content up for a fall, so they have to come back to get more advice and spend more money, yada yada. That's why pandering's not good. I think that if a piece of anything isn't challenging you at all, it's solidifying those assumptions that aren't helping you. And that's not what I want to do. But that content does really, really well. And so finding a way to do affirming content that is still somewhat challenging, but is not pandering, because, you get into the other stuff where I won't name any names because I don't want to upset anyone, but the ones that are, here's what you have to do, and this is what you suck at, and women want this, and women want that, and don't do that. No woman wants that. I'm watching this and going, no, please don't make men believe that women are one size fits all. I don't care if anybody's got a doctor in their name title. Like, stop the generalizations. People are people. And ultimately, I do think that's where we have to get, is the idea that there are certain general trends in experience that often invalidate our individuality, and that's where the problems lie. And we do know that boys are socialized different. Well, people assigned boys at birth are socialized differently than people who are assigned girls at birth. And any trans person can tell you that it's very different. And so I'm going to read a bunch of comments from Monday's video because I want to continue the dialogue. I don't know how many I'm going to be able to get to. There were a lot of really great ones. So please, if I don't read your comment, don't think it wasn't good. They were there were so many good ones this week that I'm having trouble picking. That's a nice problem to have. Go team. So if you like Manly Mondays or any other content, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. What are we up to in terms of goal at this recording? We need 2 more sessions this week. 2 more sessions to make our goal this week. Okay. And yeah, it was fun to talk gaming. I'm so torn with gaming because I love it, clearly. I like making gaming content. I don't know how to make the content do well without creating a ton of toxicity. And I don't like the toxicity. I don't think it adds anything to pander to the toxicity. I hate pandering. I am not a panderer. That is not me. Okay, as she adjusts her Alistair Has Been Hotel shirt. This is a problem I have with print t-shirts, is because this can't stretch. I might get demonetized for this, but this shirt keeps creeping up as I wear it. And so by the end of the video, you'll probably see more of Alistair's face, but that means it's riding the struggle. The struggle is real. I cannot find a multi-purpose t-shirt bra this summer. Enough of that. Okay, so on the other thing is, as I told the patrons yesterday, we're aiming for next Friday for the month overdue Song of Sparkle Muffin demo. So fingers crossed. That's been an odyssey. All right, so a lot of comments on abusive multiple comments on abusive self-talk. And one commenter said, I don't even know where this comes from because my parents weren't like this. I am finding more and more you can have great parents if your school was a really tough place. You do have abusive self-talk. If you were parentified, and even people whose parents are very loving can be parentified, meaning you have to take on responsibility that is not age appropriate. You know, that I've talked about women using their boys as, surrogate spouse territory, girls being thrust into watch your sister, watch your brother, having to make adult decisions when you are not an adult means you don't get that security of someone looking after you when you're younger. And you end up kicking your own ass because you're constantly overwhelmed, that it's like better, faster, stronger. It may not be that you got negative talk that you emulated. You got rewarded for being exceptional instead of being allowed to just be you. And as much as, I think that's part of the reason there's such an anxiety epidemic now is I got driven pretty hard by my parents, but it's nothing compared to what millennials, Gen Z, and alphas are. The pressure that people feel like they're under is intense, and it's not healthy. And I totally understand why people get anxiety ridden. So it isn't necessarily your parents. It can come from school. It can come from, your parents are quite loving, but you were praised for being mature. I talked about to a couple clients this week about how people always said I was 10 going on 35. I was 12 going on 35. And eventually when I was about 16 and I was 16 going on 35, I said, why do I never mature? They're like, what do you mean? Well, I was 35 when I was 10. They didn't get it. I'm 16 now. You're telling me I haven't matured at all. I've always just been 35. They didn't appreciate my humor. But it was a cope for me. And so now let's get into the comments. I just wanted to address the abusive self-talk. It's really easy. Psychologists love to jump right to the parents. The parents messed you up. Personally, based on the work I do, that's not always true. It can be schools. It can be greater community. It can be just hardship through no fault of the parents that the kid feels like they have to take on the responsibilities of an adult as a kid. Child entertainer can relate. So let's, one of the things that, a comment was, all the years and years of therapy have come to, or at least what I'm thinking of when I think about it, when I shared a problem with my parents or displayed any distress at their presence, it went all about the hurt and distress I was causing to them. And this is something that I've noticed that's a manipulation tactic. That I have family members that do this too. It's so upsetting to hear you say that. It's like, great. How do you think it feels to feel it? That doesn't go over well either. But yeah, that it's so hurtful to hear you say that. It's a manipulation tactic. And their parents did it. Their parents' parents probably did it. It's frustrating and tiring. And unless you've actually got someone the relative in question will listen to, it's very difficult to navigate. I use a method that's kind of like a gray rock method that, you know, giving the narcissist as little as possible, not saying that these people are narcissists, but I don't even acknowledge it hurts me to hear you say that. It's like, all right, well, then guess you should work it out, huh? Guess you should figure out why I'm so upset. It tends to just end the conversation. But I am not going to step back and step into a role of, I don't want you to be hurt, because they're not doing that for me. And one of my big mantras lately is, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you tolerate. And that has been something I have been mulling over a lot lately, considering some of the behavior I've been tolerating, but that's a huge derail. So not going to go there now. I do wonder if part of guy socialization is skipping steps. So for example, we don't need to acknowledge someone is upset. It's implicit in the idea that we are looking to solve it somehow, or it's not about acknowledging the success directly, but acknowledging by trying to compete with it. And this commenter said this is long-time quality comments. He really engages on a deep level with the content. I really appreciate that. But this isn't just guys that do that. I do find guys are encouraged to do it more. And I do believe it is actively encouraging, because if you're in one of those circles where feelings are shameful, you offer solutions as support, because that's what you would want. If a problem's bad enough that you're asking for advice about how to fix it, then it's got to be pretty bad, and you don't want anybody looking at that. Please, let's not pay a lot of attention to how bad I feel. Just help me out of this situation. And so guys are doing what they would want. How do I know this? Because I didn't get anywhere getting girl powery angry when experiencing things I found condescending or even sexist. And that's why it drives me crazy when that's glorified in media. Because if you're not in a sexist environment, you can get away with going, that's sexist, rah, rah, rah. If you're truly in a sexist environment, that will blow up in your face. And that's the thing about, that's sexist. Take it from me, if the environment is legitimately sexist, you will be out on your ass for that comment. You will get so roasted that there's no point in saying it. So there's no point in saying it, period, because unless it's a litmus test of, do I leave? That's the only time I've actually found it useful to call out sexism. It's like, all right, this is very obviously a problem, this comment. Sorry, I thought if I should provide an example, but no, I'm not going to. But this is okay. So I'm not going to negotiate my opinions on this comment. So either we come to an understanding based on the fact that was bullshit, or I'm out of here. That's the only time I find bringing up that was a sexist comment or anything of the sort, right? Because it's non-negotiable. Either buddy backs off or I'm out. That's the only time, because I did the stupid women's studies program of that's sexist. And, oh, God, was it bad? Teaching girls to do that is bad. It's bad. I still have trauma from that. So yeah, it's this unspoken rule that you don't say it. And I'm spending a lot of time on this just to say that yes. And this is one of these things where I think a step gets skipped. Correcting the problem of men skipping steps. Because I don't think we just demand men make a correction here. Because of that, feelings are shameful. I'm being kind here. Motivation. The motivations matter. I think one of the biggest mistakes left-wing theory has done is going, the intents don't matter, only how it lands matters. No. Intents matter. Why do I say this? Because if someone's being deliberately sexist and you call them sexist, you're fucked. Because they can get away with it. Because it's a sexist environment. If they don't intend it, then you've got a chance of working it out and pointing out, how the behavior is a problem. Well, that's worthwhile. But if somebody's knowingly being a bigot, why do you think you're going to be the one to make them change? So intents do matter. And I think because of that, because there is an intent to be kind, helpful, that validating that believed intent really makes you more effective as a communicator. And I tend to say that lands on me like condescension. I know you didn't intend it that way, and I'm letting you know that because you don't intend it. And I truly believe you're somebody who would, do it another way because you don't want to leave that impression. And when I say that, it's usually, yes, that's true. And it ends up being a more positive experience for everybody. But acknowledging that men are trying to be helpful by avoiding feelings doesn't solve the underlying problem for them of they are shamed when the focus is on their feelings. And we can solve two problems here instead of one, right? We can solve not just the issues with men trying to fix a problem instead of sit with you with your problem, but also the fact that he is shamed for his emotions. It can be a win-win, right? And this whole fix it, solve the problem is such an intense gender dynamic issue that it is literally the villain in the second A Court of Thorn and Roses book, A Court of Mist and Fury. I am struggling my way through this book. Just because, of course, I'm not relating to the female lead at all. I'm relating to the men and going, run, Rhysand, run, get away, fly, you have rings, fly away. She is toxic. She is bad for you. She doesn't give a shit that you're a sexual assault victim. Like, go, man, fly. But it really hits home for a lot of women because of the resentment of you be here and safe and protected and utterly inert. The problem is that a lot of guys, they would love to be able to sit and be still and have someone else handle the hard stuff for a change and be strong. And, they'd like to just kind of sit and you're not going to convince a guy whose idea of a dream weekend is just playing the Elden Ring DLC nonstop that being trapped in the house is a fate worse than death, right? You have to appeal to the different perspectives. And because we don't talk to each other, we do that, well, you should know. And there's a lot of comments with this I'm trying to find one that I wanted to read. Oh, here it is. The one commenter said this essentially describes the "if he wanted to, he would" phenomenon. The assumption gets made that men intrinsically know how women want to be loved, which will vary wildly on an individual level. So if he isn't doing it for you, he either doesn't have a deep enough level of emotional investment, or he's a sociopath narcissist that is capable of doing so. Even if it's revealed that a man didn't have that kind of upbringing or social training or had trauma in his past, the assumption is that good men will make an effort to teach themselves and put into practice with no expectation of reward. However, when some men point out that the principle of equality dictates that such effort should come from men and women within the relationship, and thus that men making more effort on their part doesn't mean that women should stop making the effort on their part, women then accuse men of reinforcing the patriarchy by making women responsible for the health of the relationship, while ironically doing it themselves by removing the validation until their standards are met. And this is a difficult problem. Because by the time it tends to get addressed in relationships, the resentment is so high that it's a sticky wicket, right? So the way I come at this is you are responsible for you. They are responsible for them. This idea of compelled effort or compelled affection doesn't work. It breeds resentment. And a lot of marriage counselors push this of you be the bigger person. No, that's often part of the problem. So the idea is that you give what you're willing to give. And you give that no matter what the other person does. If you decide you're not willing to give it anymore, own that, right? But you don't punish someone by clawing back validation, or even giving contradictory messages of the greatest thing one minute and the next minute they're this, that, the next thing, right? No, you're responsible for you. The other person is responsible for them. And there is a difference between setting boundaries. No, I'm not doing that for you anymore because you just keep demanding more. And I am punishing you by withdrawing validation and support and that stuff. This is, I am so hesitant giving generalizations here, again, because of that thing I said off the top about I don't like it when other people in videos do that. But yeah, this idea of horse trading affection and validation, it doesn't work. It's horrendously unhealthy. It's a relationship killer. And the way I choose to do it is, okay, I'm going to do this thing that I'm comfortable doing. If they appreciate it, great, good start. That means I'm going to be more comfortable doing more things in future. If they don't appreciate it, if they do things I don't like, well, relationships are ongoing negotiations, right? And if I'm not satisfied with what I'm getting out of the relationship, I'm an adult. I got to communicate that. And I'll tell you, reading these fantasy romance books, it's amazing how many plots revolve around the idea that mind reading is romantic, invading someone's mind is romantic, and the female lead hints that they're not happy, doesn't state what they need, just, can I do this today? No, I want you here when you're safe. Horrible, that's the worst thing ever, I have trauma. Oh, I'm saved by people, and now life is good again. It's, how old is this person? And why am I supposed to believe that somebody with the emotional maturity of a teenager would be remotely attractive to a 500-year-old ferryman? I'm not the audience. and this is the thing. It's important to see that this is what women are programmed to believe ideal men do. But mind reading is not ideal because it's not about when you're right. It's about when you're wrong that things really mess up. And another comment. People tell me I come across as very calm and laid back, but looking back at my childhood, I can't think of a single event where I expressed my emotions that it didn't directly lead to a negative outcome. I was basically trained into not expressing my emotions, and now I have to consciously choose to express them. And because of that, it doesn't come naturally to me when I do. They often come across as wooden, ingenuine, and performative. I did hear the real men don't cry type rhetoric a little bit from my male peers, but looking back, almost all of it, certain the parts that damaged me the most came from adult women in my life, especially my mother. I find it amazing how little abusive women, especially mothers, are acknowledged in our society. I really value what Leanna's doing and taking time to acknowledge this stuff, but it blows my mind how oblivious and actively hostile to acknowledging this mainstream society is. And there are reasons for that. There's a deep shame in motherhood that gets passed from mothers to their sons. We insist mothers be too perfect, and so they end up being terrible. Perfect is the enemy of the good for a reason. But it is something we do have to talk about because, again, mom may have tried her best, but there are things that are wounded and need healing, and we can do that. We can fix this if somebody wants to. And now we go back to the fixing thing. If it's not fixing, if somebody doesn't want it fixed, it's meddling with their stuff, right? So, okay, I think I got time for one more comment. Now, so many good comments. Let me do this one. Where is it? La 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 la. Okay, this is actually a comment from a woman. I think this can also be tied back to your Wellness Wednesday video on pandering. Just pandering is not acceptance. Placation is not emotional support. To me, placation is about manipulating someone out of a negative emotion. And I think that is often what girl world trains us to do more than supporting our loved ones through a negative emotion. Good observation. It's sort of the flip side to boys and men being trained to fix it. Like if their wife or girlfriend is unhappy, they need to zero in on the issue and fix it so he won't be upset anymore. I remember once when my husband had an injury that made it difficult for him to sleep in bed. The couch was more comfortable. We were saying goodnight and I suddenly started crying. I'd had a crappy day and not being able to share a bed with him was just the frozen limit. He immediately reached for his pain meds so that the bed would be bearable for him. That was his urge to fix it for me. But I stopped him and said that he didn't need to do that. I'd be okay and he didn't need to fix it for me. The only fixing he should worry about at this time was proper re-knitting of his broken bones. People have negative emotions. Supporting them doesn't mean erasing them. And that supporting them doesn't mean erasing them is the thing I want guys to hear from that statement from a woman. Women do not run from the same emotions that men do. If a woman is expecting you to erase her bad feelings, get out of that. Ladies, if a man is expecting you to erase his bad feelings, get out of that. And there's a lot of that too. But this is, the context of the comment. Negative emotions are something we all have to accept and learn to process. That's why I really like Inside Out 2 and the message of things like anxiety, embarrassment, envy, ennui. They have their place. And finding out where they fit is a big, big part of emotional development. If we're constantly denying those negative feelings exist, well, then, and there's this idea that is put in men's heads of, oh, I made her cry. And while you can be the proximate reason for the upset, you didn't make the person do it. That doesn't mean your behavior's okay. And in this case, the wife didn't want anything to change. She just loved her husband, was feeling lonely, couldn't keep it together. There was an example where he thought he had to fix it, and he didn't. What she needed was the ability to say, this sucks, I don't like this, I miss you. And that probably inspired some negative feelings in him. Sometimes you can't do anything about that. And so often the examples of relationships we see in real life and in the media romanticizes blaming the other person for those negative feelings. And, right, trauma therapy, graduate, I don't know what you call that, but you don't start feeling better until no one can fix it but me. No one can take me to a fairy realm and buy me pretty clothes and give me necklaces and powers. And in the real world, that doesn't make us feel better because we don't earn it. It just makes us feel more and more like an imposter. And what makes everyone feel good about what they do is very individual. And what's going to make one person feel great is not going to make somebody else feel great at all. I'm having a really hard time with the whole Court of Thorn and Roses thing because people keep calling Rhysand, who's the Batwing guy, the Dreamboat, they keep calling him a whore because he was basically a sex slave for an evil fairy lady who was a ginger. Though she seems to be depicted as having like danger hair, that burgundy hair in the fan art. So I'm like, all right, we can be cool about this. But they're calling him a whore again and again and again. And I really get the sense that it's intended to make him sexier, like more of a prize for Feyre. And it's like, no, it's shitting on the fact that what he did was not consensual. He was under duress. And as somebody who, was getting called a sex worker on Kiwi farms this week, again, that's not fun. Not because I terribly care about the opinions of those people. It's that, one, it's a pejorative, and I don't think it should be. Two, dubious consent, coerced sex is not prostitution. It's sexual assault. Three, it's like the fact that this is an insult for women, that it's like this book is trying to reclaim with a man because, he's so desirable and sexy, and he's sensitive though too because he knows what it means to be a victim. No. There's nothing sexy about sexual assault. And there's nothing sexy about slut shaming or whore shaming. But because I know the consequences of being seen that way, of being treated that way. Just this week, someone said, well, the reason I watch your content, there's a lot of content out there, like what you do. The reason I watch your content is because you're attractive. And that was supposed to be complimentary. Yeah. It's not complimentary. But people think it is. And what ends up happening to people in that situation is we can never actually prove we're smart. We can never actually prove that our ideas have value because we're supposed to be this thing. We're supposed to gratify people in this way. And we're supposed to eternally be that thing because somehow it's complimentary. And damn it, you're going to find this a compliment whether you like it or not. Because everybody would like to be sexually objectified deep down. And that's not what being sexually objectified means. And unfortunately, we've got this whole pivot towards instead of sexually objectifying women less while still keeping the sexy, we're just sexually objectifying men more, creating a lot of confusion, triggering a lot of trauma that a lot of guys have never talked to anybody in their lives. And we're making it worse instead of better. We're not solving the problem of women being depicted as sexy without being sexually objectified. But now we're just sexually objectifying men more. It's getting worse instead of better. And we can't solve the problem for the world. We can keep having this conversation and coming up with ideas, at least here, and hopefully, somebody will come across the work we're collectively doing and go, oh, this makes sense. Like, let's spread this stuff. And I don't even need fucking credit for it to spread. Keep calling me a whore. Someone said this, you are Resand. And I'm like, yeah, shit. I'm the bad guy. No matter how many times I save everyone's ass, I'm the bad guy. But if this shit gets better, because I believe things get better for men, it's better for women. Things get better for women, it's better for men and non-binary people and everything like that. Like it really is everybody. It gets better for everybody when it gets properly better for one group. And if it doesn't, it's not actually an improvement. So this idea that men are supposed to just work on themselves and fix it, it doesn't solve the problem if the men involved don't know what the path to that is. We have to maintain our boundaries and not accept shitty behavior, one. But also, we do have to be compassionate. And if somebody seems legitimately interested in taking those first few steps, well, why not facilitate that? Why not help people who are willing and not waste time on the people who aren't? Like, you guys know when behavior's bad, I go, no, that's shitty behavior, not acceptable. We don't do that. I have to do that for myself more. I tend to do it for other people. But if somebody's really willing to learn, I will invest a lot in that person because that's the way forward. At the end of the day, it's individual by individual. That is never changed. And that's the problem with social media activism. We do need to validate people as individuals so they can individually grow and thrive and be the best version of themselves. That's why I call it going good crazy. Because the more you're yourself, the more you deviate from the norms, right? And people are going to call you unhinged and delusional and a whore and a bitch and all that stuff. You're going to get called that more and more and more and more. And other names as you individuate from the norm. But as much as those words are irritating and frustrating and will close some doors, I had to have a difficult conversation with a friend who I refused to abandon, even though it's an unpopular time for them. I said to them that, yeah, I'll probably lose a few gigs for this, but there'll be others. And that's not okay or not okay. It's just the truth. If this stuff works, this bullying works, because people run for the exits and only think about themselves and their friends get into trouble. If we go, no, you're not going to separate me from this person. Your tactics are not going to work. People will do them less. And do I terribly want to work for people who are calling me a whore, either to my face or behind my back or things like that? No, I don't want to work with or for those people. I want to enjoy going to work. So we all make choices, and I want to be an embodiment and I want to be an example of owning your choice and standing in it. And my choice is to rap now. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. If you want to find out when our game demo is available, become a patron. It'll be Patreon and Kickstarter. So become a monthly patron today. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Two more sessions to make our goal this week. Thanks for watching, and I don't have the graphic ready for the end. Go me. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.